Hello everyone, we're joined today by Dr. Ahmed AlBanna, the UAE ambassador to India. Thank you so much for joining us today, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much for having me.
So India's total coronavirus infections crossed 27 million today. It has the second highest rate of COVID cases worldwide after the US. How has this affected bilateral relations and your work as ambassador?
Looking at the bilateral relationship between India and UAE during COVID-19, I think due to that strategic relationship that there is between or exists between the United Arab Emirates and India, COVID-19 maybe somehow supported that strategic relationship. Due to that relationship, the COVID-19, there were more coordination, exchange of experts, exchange of doctors, exchange of groups of medical team. At the very first of the pandemic, we have imported a lot of medicine from India. In terms of those medicine that was needed for the frontliners of those people who are fighting COVID-19 in the healthcare system.
But would you say it strengthened UAE-India relations? And maybe you can share a little more specifically about the health cooperation between the two countries?
Of course, there was a very strong collaboration. The support from the Indian medical teams, the support of the hydroxychloroquine and hydrochloroquine, and those are special medicine that was imported at the very beginning of the pandemic from India. During the pandemic, there was exchanges of telephone calls, of virtual meetings between our leadership. Although pandemic was, affecting everyone all over the world, but then at the same time, there were positive sides to the pandemic, to COVID-19 pandemic.
And of course, we saw the show of solidarity here, even the Burj Khalifa being lit up with the Indian flag.
Of course, yes. There has been a lot of exports of medical supplies, medical equipment, oxygen ventilators, and other medicines to support the healthcare system in India.
Yeah, much needed support. How concerned would you say is the UAE seeing the second wave and seeing the really unbelievable numbers that we're hearing about? I know flights have been suspended until June 14th now. How concerned is the UAE that it could affect internally, health-wise?
If we talk specifically with India and the second wave that hit India, I think the air bubble agreement still was in effect. Still there are flights, but then we have to protect we have to protect the UAE.
When do you think flights will resume?
Well, I hope by 14th of June, but then again, it all depends on the control that they will have in India. If we look at even the latest wave, it had encouraged a lot of business houses, a lot of businessmen in India to look into the available opportunities in the United Arab Emirates.
So where would you say the UAE will be investing within India? What sectors? And what has the UAE been investing in already?
Well, if we look at the trade figures, India is partner number 2 for the United Arab Emirates after China. And if we look at it from the other side, the United Arab Emirates is partner number 3 to India.
Projected to be number one day.
Projected to be number one day. That's right. Total trade, total foreign trade today is $60 billion. If we make a small comparison, in 1985, total trade between UAE and India was $185 million. That is 85. Today, in 2020 or 2021, it is $60 billion. And actually, the figures that is coming out from the Indian side, they are looking at, by 2030, they are looking at $100 billion total foreign trade with the United Arab Emirates.
The UAE also has a strategic oil reserve in Mangalore. Are there any plans for expansion?
Well, at the moment, as you mentioned, there is a big, huge reserve, oil reserve in Mangalore, and there is a lot of strong contact and strong bilateral on the level of oil and gas. India is an extension to UAE, and UAE is an extension to India. The geographical proximities helped, and also people-to-people relationship.
Where would you say the influences are most felt today?
So if we look at other sectors in terms of renewable energy, in terms of food security, in terms of technology, innovation, there are so many sectors that our interest meets the interest of India.
You mentioned innovation, so I'm curious to know what incentives does the UAE have for India in terms of high tech and entrepreneurs wanting to move here?
Well, the UAE on many different levels, whether local levels or whether federal levels, they have created a mechanism, and they have created startups units, and they have created a progressive arm to look into how we can increase the investment opportunities, both sides. The UAE is geographically located to be a place or a center for India, for Indian multinational corporations, for Indian companies, to be a gateway for them to the region.
And the silver lining for the UAE and for India is emerging as an even stronger alliance.
Exactly.
Dr. Ahmed AlBanna, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insight.
I thank you very much.